You've been planting hydrangeas wrong this entire time, and I'll bet you didn't even know it. You thought you were doing everything right, but what if I told you that you're probably making at least one of these 5 shocking mistakes with your hydrangeas right now? These are the kinds of mistakes that leave your plants struggling, your blooms underwhelming, and your garden feeling less than vibrant. Today, we're going to fix that once and for all. Stick with me through this video and you'll never look at hydrangea care the same way again. Now, think back to the last time you planted hydrangeas and you were so excited to see those gorgeous blooms, but instead you got wilted leaves, dull colors, or maybe even no blooms at all. Sound familiar? Well, it's more common than you think. If you've ever planted hydrangeas only to watch them droop, wither, or fail to bloom, I want you to comment below with, "I've been there." Trust me, you're not alone, and these mistakes are way more common than most people realize. Welcome to Serene Green Gardens. Whether you're a seasoned gardener or just starting out, this channel is all about making your garden a peaceful, flourishing retreat. If you're tired of hearing the same gardening advice over and over, then you're in the right place. And don't forget to like this video and subscribe. Let's dig in. Hydrangeas are one of the most beloved garden plants, but for so many gardeners, they never live up to their full potential. But the good news? You don't need to start over. In today's video, I'm revealing 5 little-known mistakes that most gardeners overlook. Mistakes that will leave your hydrangeas dull and struggling. Mistake number 1, not paying attention to microclimates. We all know hydrangeas need some shade to thrive, right? But here's the thing. What most gardeners don't realize is that it's not just about how much sunlight your hydrangea gets. It's about where you plant it in your garden and what else is going on around it. You see, your garden isn't one giant uniform climate. It's made up of microclimates, tiny localized areas where temperature, moisture, and light can vary dramatically. And if you're not paying attention to those differences, you might be setting up your hydrangeas for failure. Let's break this down. Imagine you found a nice sunny spot for your hydrangea. It gets plenty of morning sunlight, so you assume that's perfect, right? But here's the catch. If that spot is close to a wall, especially one made of brick or stone, it could be trapping heat and reflecting it right onto your plant, increasing the temperature by several degrees even in the morning. Now your hydrangea is getting an extra dose of heat, something it doesn't need. Or maybe your plant is under the shade of a large tree in the afternoon. That's great for avoiding afternoon sun, but now it's competing for moisture and root space, and that can stress out your plant. This is what we call a microzone, a small, unique environment created by surrounding structures, trees, or even the layout of your garden. And what you need to remember is that hydrangeas thrive in specific conditions, and placing them in the right microclimate can make or break their growth. If you get the placement wrong, you could end up with plants that are too stressed out to bloom or that fail to reach their full potential. So how can you avoid this? First, take a moment to observe the different areas in your garden. Pay attention to the temperature changes, the humidity levels, and how the sun and wind behave at different times of the day. If your hydrangea is near a heat-reflecting surface like a stone wall, move it a little further away or consider giving it extra shade. This will protect it from those harsh temperature fluctuations that can leave it struggling. Another trick is to plant hydrangeas where they can benefit from morning sun and afternoon shade. This is the sweet spot for most varieties. If you're planting near larger trees, make sure the hydrangea isn't competing for nutrients and water. Give it a little more room to breathe and to develop strong roots. Mistake number 2, failing to consider wind exposure. Now, let's talk about something most gardeners never even think about when planting hydrangeas. You might think you found a perfect sunny spot. Maybe it's protected, maybe it's warm, but here's the truth. Wind exposure is stealing your plant's energy and weakening it, all without you even noticing. When we think of plant stress, we usually think about too much sun, drought, or pests, but wind is a hidden stressor that has a huge impact, especially on young hydrangeas. Strong winds can dry out the leaves, dehydrate the plant faster than it can absorb water, and even cause leaf burn. Over time, the constant battering can weaken the stems and, even worse, break delicate branches. Those beautiful, large blooms that you're hoping for, they're more likely to droop or fail to develop if the plant is constantly fighting the wind. It's important to remember that wind doesn't just physically damage plants, but it also takes a toll on their energy. When your hydrangea is exposed to strong, unrelenting winds, it's using up a lot of its resources just to stay upright and healthy. This leaves it with less energy for blooming and thriving. And here's the kicker. It might not be obvious right away. You won't necessarily see broken branches or fallen leaves immediately, but over time your plant's growth will slow down and you'll notice a lack of vitality in those blooms. So, how do you protect your hydrangeas from this invisible threat? Well, the solution is simple: windbreaks. Try planting your hydrangeas near natural wind barriers like fences, taller shrubs, or even planting taller, more resilient plants that can act as a wind barrier. The key is to create a zone where the wind is broken up, allowing your hydrangea to grow in a calmer, more protected environment. But what if you don't have natural windbreaks in your garden? Don't worry, you can easily build your own. Consider installing a simple garden structure like a trellis, a lattice panel, or even planting taller, more resilient plants that can act as a wind barrier. These structures don't have to be elaborate or expensive, but they'll make a huge difference in giving your hydrangeas the protection they need. Mistake number 3. Ignoring root health. Not enough room for growth. Now, let's talk about something that's often ignored: the health of your hydrangea's roots. When it comes to planting hydrangeas, most gardeners focus on things like sunlight, watering, and fertilizing. But here's a critical factor that can make or break your hydrangea success: space for the roots. Did you know that hydrangeas have large, sprawling root systems? They need plenty of space to grow and spread out. If you've planted them too close together or too close to other plants, you're causing serious root competition, and that's going to stunt their growth big time. Hydrangeas aren't small plants, and their roots need plenty of room to develop strong and healthy. When you crowd them too closely together or plant them in a spot where the roots don't have room to stretch out, you're setting them up for failure right from the start. Think of the roots like the foundation of a house. Without a solid, wide foundation, everything above ground suffers. The roots are responsible for absorbing the water and nutrients your hydrangea needs to thrive. If they're cramped, they can't do that job effectively. This results in weak plants, fewer blooms, and overall lackluster growth. On top of that, when roots are crowded, they tend to get tangled up with one another, competing for space and nutrients. This means they're more prone to diseases, root rot, and even dehydration because they simply can't access enough water or oxygen. So it's not just about how you care for the leaves and flowers, it's about giving the roots the freedom to do their job properly. So, what's the solution? First and foremost, make sure you're planting your hydrangeas with enough space for their roots to grow. A good rule of thumb is to give them about 3 to 5 feet of space, depending on the variety you're working with. Some varieties, like the larger tree-like hydrangeas, may need more space, while smaller varieties will do fine with a bit less. But here's the trick. Always check the roots when you're planting. If you notice that the root ball is tightly packed or even circling around itself, you need to loosen it up before planting. Gently tease the roots apart so they can spread out properly in the soil. This helps encourage the roots to grow outward rather than continue in tight circles. Additionally, make sure the soil is loose and well draining. Compact or heavy soil can suffocate the roots and hinder their growth. If your soil is too dense, consider mixing in some compost or organic matter to improve the texture and drainage. Mistake number 4: not adjusting fertilizer for hydrangea varieties. We all know that hydrangeas are heavy feeders and they love nutrients. But did you know that not all hydrangeas need the same type of fertilizer? Many gardeners make the mistake of using a generic fertilizer across the board without realizing that each variety has its own specific needs. By treating every hydrangea the same way, you might be unknowingly hindering their growth and bloom potential. Here's where it gets interesting. Different hydrangea varieties thrive in different soil types, and their fertilizer requirements are directly linked to that. For example, mophead hydrangeas, those big round blooms you often see in gardens, prefer more acidic soil. If you're fertilizing them with a product that's not formulated for acid-loving plants, you could be preventing them from reaching their full potential. The wrong type of fertilizer can mess with the pH of the soil, making it harder for the plant to absorb the nutrients it needs. On the other hand, panicle hydrangeas, with their beautiful conical-shaped blooms, actually prefer a more neutral to slightly alkaline soil. They're not the same as mopheads, and they don't need the same kind of fertilizer. If you feed them the same thing you use for mopheads, they won't thrive either. Using the wrong fertilizer can lead to weak growth, poor blooms, or even yellowing leaves. So it's not just about fertilizing, it's about knowing what to fertilize with and when to apply it. So what can you do to fix this? The first step is to identify the type of hydrangea you're dealing with. Once you know whether you have a mophead, panicle, or another variety, you can tailor your fertilizer approach accordingly. For mophead hydrangeas that love acidic soil, use a fertilizer that's higher in phosphorus and lower in nitrogen. This helps promote strong root growth and vibrant blooms without encouraging too much leafy growth. For panicle hydrangeas and other varieties that prefer neutral or slightly alkaline conditions, a balanced fertilizer will work best. Something with equal parts nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium, like a 10-10-10 mix, will provide the nutrients they need to grow strong, healthy, and produce those amazing cone-shaped flowers. If you're unsure about the pH needs of your hydrangeas, it's always a good idea to test your soil before applying any fertilizer. Soil testing kits are easy to use and can give you a better idea of the exact needs of your plants. Once you know the pH, you can fine-tune your fertilizer choice to ensure your hydrangeas get the best possible start in life. Mistake number 5. Overlooking seasonal care. Here's a big mistake many gardeners make when caring for hydrangeas. They treat them like a set-it-and-forget-it plant. They think once the plant is in the ground, it'll just grow and bloom on its own, no matter the time of year. But if you're not paying attention to the seasonal needs of your hydrangeas, you're missing out on one of the most important aspects of plant care, and your hydrangeas won't perform as well as they should. Let's start with fall. This is the time when many gardeners stop thinking about their hydrangeas, but this is exactly when they need some extra love and attention. Just like how we need to prepare for the colder months, your hydrangeas need a little help too. If you neglect them during dormancy, you're setting them up for a tough spring and summer. Fall care can actually make or break your hydrangea's success the following season. For example, as fall rolls in, your hydrangea's blooms will begin to fade, but don't just leave them be. You need to prune off those dead stems. If you don't, they'll hold moisture and possibly cause rot or mildew over the winter. Removing these dead parts is an easy but crucial step in preparing your plant for the colder months. And while pruning is important, don't forget about mulching. A thick layer of mulch around the base of the plant acts like a blanket that protects the roots from the harsh winter cold. If your hydrangea's roots freeze, it can severely damage or even kill the plant, especially if it's a more sensitive variety. The mulch keeps the soil temperature stable and gives your hydrangeas the best chance to survive the winter and bounce back stronger come spring. But it doesn't stop there. Seasonal care doesn't just end in fall. Once spring arrives, your hydrangeas are waking up, and it's time to give them a gentle, light prune. This encourages new growth and ensures your plant puts energy into fresh, healthy stems and blooms. Don't go too heavy on the pruning though. Just trim back any dead or weak wood to help the plant focus on the good stuff. So, what do you need to do for seasonal care? First, in late fall, after your hydrangea's blooms have faded, trim back any dead or diseased stems. Don't go overboard, just remove what's dead and keep the healthy parts intact. Next, apply a layer of mulch around the base of the plant. Aim for about 3 to 4 inches of mulch. This will not only protect the roots from freezing, but also help retain moisture through the colder months. Then, as soon as you start seeing new growth in early spring, give your hydrangeas a light prune. Cut back any remaining dead wood and trim back the previous year's growth to encourage fresh, healthy shoots. This simple step will help your hydrangeas grow bigger and bloom more vigorously in the warmer months. All right, let's quickly recap the key mistakes we've covered today so you can go into your garden and start making a real difference with your hydrangeas. First, we talked about the importance of paying attention to microclimates. It's not just about sunlight, it's about where your hydrangeas are planted in your garden and what's around them. Understanding your garden's unique conditions can be a game changer. Then we discussed wind exposure. Hydrangeas can be vulnerable to strong winds that dry them out, weaken their stems, and hinder their blooms. Protecting them with windbreaks will help them thrive without unnecessary stress. Next, we dived into root health. Many gardeners don't realize how much space hydrangeas needed for their roots to grow. Crowding them too closely or planting them in tight spaces can lead to weak plants and poor blooms. So remember, give those roots room to grow. We also touched on fertilizing according to variety. Hydrangeas are not all the same. Mophead and panicle hydrangeas need different fertilizers to thrive. Tailoring your fertilizer to each variety will boost plant health and promote better blooms. Finally, we discussed seasonal care. Don't make the mistake of ignoring your hydrangeas during the fall and winter months. Proper pruning, mulching, and care will set your hydrangeas up for success when spring comes around. Now, as a little bonus for you, did you know that hydrangeas can actually change color based on the pH of your soil? That's right. If you've been dreaming of those gorgeous blue hydrangea blooms, it's all about the soil chemistry. Here's the trick. If you want to encourage those stunning blue flowers, try adding aluminum sulfate to your soil. It makes it more acidic, which is perfect for blue hydrangeas. On the other hand, if you prefer pink blooms, you can add lime to raise the pH and make them pinker. This little-known tip will help you get those vibrant colors you've been hoping for. If these tips helped you, don't forget to hit that like button to show your support and leave a comment below sharing your biggest hydrangea struggle. What's been the hardest part of growing them for you? I'd love to hear how you're going to adjust your care after today's video. Together, we can all learn and grow, and your comment might even help someone else. Thank you so much for joining me today on Serene Green Gardens. I hope these tips have given you the confidence and knowledge to help your hydrangeas flourish. If you're looking for more fresh gardening tips, make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell so you never miss a video. Until next time, happy gardening, and I'll see you in the next one.